One is doing well. I'm going to adjust this camera slightly so you can see me. So this is a scale that I used to have, and I sold it a while ago, maybe 4 years ago. But it's a fun scale, very different layout than a lot of other instruments. Let's see if you can guess the scale that this is. I'll tell you at the end once more people hop in here. So. Guess the scale, guys. Thank you so much. So yes, center note is A, but the bottom note is a B. So we have an A2 and a B2. Good guess, Jody. This is a B Celtic double ding. Not 432, although that would be very cool if this was 432. This one I had a long time ago, and I sold it, but I recently got it back because I've been getting a lot of new students on this scale. So it's good to have another one to mess around with and explore. I actually wrote quite a bit on this as well. So I'll play you something I wrote when I had it initially. If you guys have any questions or scale requests or anything like that, feel free to write them and I will check them in between playing. Let me make sure I didn't miss anybody. All right, so here we go. Ask away if you guys have any questions. Are just two notes that's how they fit an extra note on here. It's just the top two notes of a normal B Celtic scale. Kind of like the B chord also has the same layout. Like this video too, that helps me to be seen. I'm slowly getting this channel into visibility. I've gained 2,000 subscribers this month, which is pretty good. comments. Shape of my... Oh, interesting. Oh, it's exciting you're getting the B Celtic. Shape of my heart. I could figure it out. I'd have to listen to it again. I haven't listened to that in a very long time. I'll get back to you on the shape of my heart. The plant behind me is Helianthus inulin, or Jerusalem artichoke. And these actually were from, originally from a root that was from Whole Foods. And I decided that I would plant them. And that's kind of the neat thing about Jerusalem artichoke. It is so invasive, quote unquote, so happy to grow everywhere that you could put it somewhere and it'll just spread everywhere. But it makes a nice backdrop for areas that you want a little shade or you want to be a little bit more enclosed. So, very fun stuff. All right, let me see what other comments here. Do I prefer the Rav, Vast, or Handpan? I like them evenly. They're, you know, I like some of my material, the songs that I've written on the Rav. I like some of my material on the Handpan, but I don't like either one more. Usually when people first get a Handpan or first get a Rav, that's the thing they're into, and eventually it kind of levels out and you realize that you like them both kind of for different reasons. But I prefer sustain. I like instruments that have a lot of sustain, and for me, the Rav fits really well with my writing style, so I'm okay with that sustain. Many years ago, believe it or not, people did not like sustain, and it was actually preferred when instruments had a very short ringing time when they were struck. So things have changed drastically. Absolutely. So tips for playing. I think you've probably seen this if you've watched some of the videos, Amy. The best way to conceptualize a scale was really to think about it as chopped in half. So I'll use this one as an example. This one's a little different because this has two dings, but pretend this is a normal note down here. If you think about the top half as the melodic half of the instrument and the bottom half as the sort of chordal movement part, it's a good way of framing your playing. So when I make a change down here, it's going to affect the feeling of what's happening up here. And I'll give you an example of that. This is something I talk about a lot in my lessons with people one-on-one. So if I was just playing a simple pattern, if I was just doing 9, 8, 7, 6, right? Hey, Michael. These are Jerusalem artichokes, and happy 4th to you as well. So if I was walking down 9, 8, 7, 6, right? And if I added another hand onto that, right? And if I change what that lower note is, it changes the feeling of what's happening on the top. And I can do it again. So in changing the root notes, the bottom half, you're also changing the effect of what's happening on the top. And this is the way all songs are written, whether people are conscious of that or not. And it has to do with the way scales are laid out, really. So. Another big tip for people that are just getting into it or are comfortable already, I see so many people using this technique. You know, do what you want. It doesn't matter to me really, but I think for people's longevity of playing, this puts so much pressure on your finger, especially if you're flicking down. Nobody taught me to play the Rav and Handpan. There were no teachers in the past, so I've just been teaching myself and now teaching for the last 5 or 6 years. So yeah, it's been a fun journey. Back in the day, nobody was teaching Handpan, so I just had to figure it out, which is fun. But now I love teaching because I have tons of material to teach through song, and people can make a lot of progress very quickly. But what I was saying, the strike that people make, a lot of times people have a tendency to do this because they see players play it this way. It's really not an ergonomic strike. Flat-fingered or slightly sort of bent down is the best if you're going to do a slap. And especially for the Rav, but also for the Handpan, Yeah, I think there's again nothing wrong with it, but I think for me, this flat finger is a little bit better. I don't have any joint issues, and I play, I'm teaching 4 to 7 lessons a day, and I perform very, very frequently. And I'm still not destroying my hands, so I would say that technique is typically promoted, this technique, by people who don't play very much. So yeah, so the big sound really has to do with the way you're striking. It's probably you staying in contact too long with the note. So if I don't bounce off, then it mutes the note. So if I stay on just a little bit too long, or especially with the poke method is really hard to hear sound, honestly. I can do it because I tried to learn that way. But it takes a different way of striking. I suppose that would help potentially. But if you go flat finger and you flick down with your finger, then you're using the ergonomics of your finger to get your finger back up out of the way. So if I strike down, it's a lot easier to hop off of there and not have to worry about pulling my hand off. Also, small motions. A lot of my percussion students have a tendency to be, playing the piano like this. Smaller motions sound better. The more energy you're putting into it in terms of like gross movement, the worse it's going to sound typically. I can be very loud like this, but it messes with my timing. It also messes with my hands hurting. But if you keep your hands low to the instrument and you do a solid flick, for the top notes, I use my pointer fingers, and for the bottom notes in the center, I use my thumbs. So if I was playing something down here, because of the position of your hands, pointer fingers don't really make sense for the bottom, because you'd have to do all sorts of weird stuff. So I recommend to students walking up the first 4 notes, maybe even 5 notes with thumbs, and then using pointer fingers after that. Hey, congratulations on the new rev. So, to give you an example, if I was playing something like this, I would be alternating between thumbs and pointer fingers. It's also hard to tell what finger I'm using because I have small motions in my hands because I've trained myself to do that. I think someone else asked a question as well. Mallets versus hands. I'm not opposed to mallets. I think that mallets limit some of the things you can do, but I don't think that they're a bad thing. I have students that use mallets as well. You can still write things. The only thing that's hard is if I want to play a dyad, 2 notes at once, I can use 2 fingers. With a mallet, you have to use 2 separate hands, so I couldn't do something like, or do something like, where I want to play 2 or 3 notes at once and have a hand free. So it all kind of depends on what you're comfortable with. But if you're playing simple stuff that is just straightforward, you don't need to necessarily use your hands. But it's also going to mean learning that skill of striking, and you're not going to have the skill for your hands as well if you don't learn them at the same time, because this motion is very different than the motion you'd be using with your fingers. So I do recommend people start with fingers, but some people have arthritis and all of that, so I totally get not wanting to hurt your hands more. Does anybody have any scale requests? I can grab some different scales for us too. Thankfully on the RAV that would not put it out of tune. But on a handpan you would definitely retune your instrument if you use sledgehammers. I also have a video while you guys are writing some other stuff that I'm going to be working on. I ordered, and I'm probably going to be giving away, a Temu handpan. And not in a sponsored way. I have no interest in being sponsored by them, but I ordered one just to show what people could buy for $150 on that website, because I have a lot of students that are getting really, really cheap instruments to start. Some are okay, some are bad. But this video is going to talk a little bit about that product. We're going to do an unboxing and stuff, but should be fun, should be useful. Jody, you asked me how long I've been playing for 8 years, but I've also been playing for guitar for 32 years. So I've been playing music a majority of my life since my teenage years. 37 now, so probably since like 14 I've been playing guitar. So I've had plenty of experience. I can't count. 20 something years I've been playing guitar. I was clearly an English major and not a math major. Yeah, and I also have a love of world music. So I learned sitar and rebab and saz and sitar and all sorts of flutes. So my interest extends far beyond the rav and the handpan. But because I was a guitar player, I was able to apply my guitar mind for writing songs to this. And for a guitar player to write music, once you've understood this instrument, it's super easy. Like I have enough material for the next 5 lifetimes written already. So it makes sense if you're a guitar player how this is laid out. It's almost like someone picked the chords you're playing for you. What else did you ask in here? So what got me interested in it? So a long time ago on the Handpan forums, which don't really exist anymore, I saw a video about the RAV, or a post by Andre before it was really in existence. And people were kind of naysaying that it's not going to work, it's going to sound bad. And I'd wanted a handpan for a while, and back then you couldn't buy a handpan. There weren't any handpans available. And I did manage to get a really cheap handpan that was more the quality of like a tuned trash can. And so I sold that and I bought a RAV. And I was unbelievably happy with it. The wait time for RAVs used to be like 6 months because it was still just being made by Andre and a couple other people. And obviously now they're available right away. But the first couple RAVs that I purchased were long wait times. Like I waited between one and 6 months for the first ones to be sent, not even to be made, not just to be made. So yeah, that was my origin story. My first scale ever was an A for us, which I still have. It's a great scale. It's only 7 notes on the outside and 1 note in the center. So it's probably the least number of notes that they made, but I think mine is number 5 of the vast generation. And the ones that are a little bit older than that, the RAV drum, the old one, is smaller. It's a much smaller instrument, but still very fun. You couldn't perform with one really. It's not that quality, but it's an interesting piece of history nonetheless. Any other questions? Let's see. Oh yeah, absolutely, Michael. I'd love to visit. I'm planning on a sort of mini tour this fall, and hopefully going to Europe next winter. But that's in the works at the moment. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I think that is what I have to offer compared to other people in this space, is that I'm writing music, and I love improvising. It's not a knock on improvising, but a lot of times music is solely improvised on these instruments, and my goal has been to show that they can be played as in the same way that a guitar could. You write something, you're able to repeat it, you can add words to it, you can play with other people. So that's been the goal with these, is to transfer that skill set to this. So I'm glad to hear that you perceive that from there. I'm gonna grab a couple different scales right now. So if anybody has any ideas for scales, let me know it right now. I'll goof around on this for a moment for the audio to catch up with the video. Another thing too, while I'm waiting for you guys to write scale requests, when you're using your thumb, don't do this. Don't flip your hand too much. If you start from this angle, yeah, I can grab the B Celtic. If you start from this height and you flick down as well, hey Doran, how are you? Then you're getting a little bit clearer of a sound, and I'm aiming for this sort of part of my finger. And I find that gives me the clearest bounce back. Maybe this, but I'm not hitting the side, I'm kind of hitting at this angle. So this part of my thumb here on the bony portion. And I find if you can play it on the top, but the smaller the note is, the worse it sounds with your thumb. So I really recommend using pointer fingers for the upper notes. Aha, here's the B Celtic double ding right here. I just got one back. I didn't have one for many years, and I had Rav send me one because I've been getting a lot of students on the B Celtic double ding. So it's a really fun scale. I'm gonna grab a B Celtic and maybe a handpan for you guys as well. I will return momentarily. Right, any more questions you have? Back. So I think that I grabbed, this was a curd. Hello again, I'm back. Thanks for hanging out. Have you yet to get a handpan? Find the parent. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Maxim is a really cool guy. This is a generic question, but how do you practice to master? How did I practice to master the instrument? By playing music. I really think it's hard for people to progress. This is my whole philosophy in teaching people too. If you can learn a song, or even if you learn a part of a song, and you're able to repeat something, you can improve it. If every time you sit down at an instrument and you're just making it up on the spot, it's harder to make progress. You might improve as an improviser, but it's harder to make progress because you can't refine your skills in the same sort of way. And you know, I find that for most people, it's a lot better to learn. I mean, what I teach in my classes for people one-on-one and in groups is my material, and they're tailored to a particular skill. So if we're working on our rolls, maybe I have a song that uses, you know, or and that skill is more fun in context. What's wrong with the sort of teaching world in the handpan and Rav space is that it's all technique driven, and technique without context is just beautiful noise, you know, and that's really what most people are playing, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but oftentimes people are left wanting more as players if they're not applying the context to their technique. And that makes a big difference. If you don't like what you're playing or you're not connecting to it, it makes you not want to play. So having a song or learning a song from someone like me allows you to repeat it, allows you to get into it and enjoy it in a different sort of way. So, but just spending time doing something you love and picking a skill and kind of working on that skill in context is how I would improve if I was starting again. I'm a music, I have 2 Ravs, Cosmo Sky. EOX drums, I would say that they're in the same realm as the Pulsar. I like, I have to be careful how it is. I like the Pulsar, I like the EOX, I like the Katone, K-A-A tone. but I do still think that the RAV is the only performance quality tone drum. And I'm not saying this just because I work with RAV. Just for me as a performer, I play all makers' instruments. I'm not exclusive to one. The RAV is the only instrument that I've encountered of this style that I think works well mic'd. Yeah. So, but I think EOX, if you like the sound of it, go for it. And I like that there's different sizes. I have a couple students that have them in different scales, but the RAV is still the primary one. But I like the customization of the EOX and Pulsar, and just the ability to add more notes. I do have a secret to tell you guys, and this is going to be revealed now, but I'm going to be getting my own scale, a Rewild Your Soul scale from RAV in the near future. So be on the lookout for a very melodic chordal scale, but hasn't been officially announced yet, but there will be something coming. I won't tell you the scale or anything, but it'll be designed by me. But Jody, for hitting the one, I would approach hitting the one with your arm horizontal to the instrument. And so you're going to be hitting the one with your hand like this. So your thumb is going to flick down. It really has to do with where your arm is in space. That's going to make a difference in the quality of your strike. So if I'm hitting the one, I'm here. The two is comfortable like this. Three is comfortable straight out. But ones are always going to be kind of at this space for the right hand. And that's true for a lot of even dyads. Like if I'm hitting a dyad, I'm kind of adjusting where my elbow is to find a comfortable position. Yes, for everyone. Yep, it's gonna be publicly available for sale. So I'm pretty stoked about it. Yeah, I love, that's not a knock at all on Pulsar. I actually really like Pulsar. I don't own one, but I've played 20 of them maybe. But I find when I've tried to record them or use them in things, it's harder to get a sound that I think equates to the sound of it in person. The RAV is surprisingly easier to record than a Handpan, which is shocking. But on my RAV album, it was really easy to get the right setup and just feel like I caught the quality of the sound of it. So that could be also a me recording issue because, you know, recording is its own art in and of itself. But what's my favorite scale? I love the Aegean. The Aegean's definitely up there on my list, which is the Marmara in RAV, the RAV world. I also love harmonic minor scales. So they're kind of like Hijaz scales, so a little Middle Eastern sounding, but with a little bit more Renaissance feel to them. They're great. Yes, I agree. I think too, you're right. There's a smaller space that gives you the best sound, whereas the RAV you can be kind of lazy and you're gonna get a different sound. It has to do with the thickness of the steel, I think, as well. The RAV is a lot thicker than a lot of tone drums. Also, the brilliance of the RAV is the bracing system. And I think that's what differentiates this from most other instruments, is that it has something tying it together. Yeah, I think that's the innovation that really changed things. You can't see it on the old ones, but when these are made, they're one flat sheet. You may have seen RAV post this already, but they're one flat piece, and then there's a frame, and this flat sheet is welded onto the frame. So these are all cuts that are welded up together against the frame, and then they buff this down. But that structure is what isolates the notes and also transfers the sympathetic resonance to other notes. And I think that really was Andre's innovation, was creating something that had a wholeness to it in the same way that the RAV did. And you can actually see the inner workings of it if you look inside of it. All right, let me play you something. playing guys too. Getting windy out here. The sky is on the cusp of rain at the moment. So what did you guys say? A timeline for where? Do you find the top right note 8 and ring out the most? I would say on this particular yeah, I'd say the 8s. The 8 definitely rings out the most on this one because you have the center note pairing and also the 4 pairing and the 1 pairing. Because the 1 and the 8 are the octave, and then the 4 and the center are the 5th. So I find that one, on the chord scale at least, is the most resonant. Thunder. For other scales, it just depends on where the octave note is typically. But yeah, I do agree with you. That one rings out the most on this one. What else do people ask? Effortless and magical. Only sad note I have is on. Yeah, so the ELO Pygmy I like, but I think that it would need even more bracing to not have as many sort of resonance issues. I've played some that are very clean sounding too, but I know what you're talking about. Yes, they're a very dangerous thing to get into for sure. Thank you. I appreciate that very much, Jody. No, honestly, I have an electroacoustic. I need to get my butt in gear and make more videos with the electroacoustic. Thank you for reminding me to do that. I will grab it tomorrow from storage. For me, it's more that I didn't really have a need for plugging it in. And because I'm somebody that has a lot of material, I would have to have an electroacoustic on every scale that I have music on. And if I'm traveling, I bring, if it's a show, I'll bring 10 instruments maybe. And I could fill a day with 10 instruments, but the electroacoustic by far, and I'll do a video on this, is unbelievably balanced and great sounding compared to the piezo pickups that you can just pop on that are magnetic. 100% recommend the electroacoustic. It's just not something that has been in my repertoire, but I have one and I will certainly do more videos on that for sure. So yes, I'm about to, I'll say this for you guys on here too, I'm announcing multiple things. I'm going to be crowdfunding for my next album. And I think what I'm going to do for it is try something interesting and try to record the songs with the best recording setup I can muster in nature. And pick places that are purposely quiet and are kind of a nice setting. And have a visual album that goes along with the acoustic album. So there'll be a visual component to every recording. And I'll superimpose, obviously, the studio audio onto that. But I like the idea of an album that's been recorded in nature. So I think that's the route I'm going to go with this one. I have most of the songs picked out that I'm going to use. If you guys have suggestions on hearing ones that you've listened to that you like that haven't been on my last two albums, let me know that. But I want to try to capture the mood of particular places. So I'm going to kind of choose things for that setting that I like and see if I can get some good recordings through that. So that's on the horizon this summer. I'm going to be announcing that this week probably, or next week. I'm just doing up a little page for that. So if you're interested in helping to crowdfund that album, let me know, and I'll forward all of that stuff and post about it. Let me play you something on the G Pygmy while we're here. Yeah, I highly recommend, I forget your username, Music Nerd, yeah. I highly recommend you try one of those out if you have a chance. I love the electroacoustic. I just need to do more videos with it. I haven't had time to do more than just my initial one. So this is a very, very old G Pygmy. Pretty ancient instruments. Make sure all the chickens are good. Yes, they are. Here, you guys can come with me to visit the chickens. Just gonna make sure everybody's where they're supposed to be. Oh, thank you so much. You're so sweet. Thank you, Jody. You in here, Miss Luna? Yep, you're in there. We have two pretty chickens right now, but want to say hi, Tulsi? And Marigold right there. Two cuties. They're sweet girls. Thank you so much, Jody. That was super sweet. All right, let me play you something on the G Pygmy really quick. So, an example of a song I wrote on something else, but I ended up converting it to a different scale. I wrote this song, Ouroboros, on the B Celtic. And then I played it on the G Pygmy, made modifications, and ended up liking it more on here. And it's not on an album, so I think this is definitely going to be on an album. Probably the next album, but let me play that for you. Ask any questions you guys have. I may have to run inside if it starts to downpour on me, but I'm hoping the rain will hold out for me till the end of this song at least. much. I appreciate that. So neotone, to answer that. Okay. The Cosmos Sky really, really looks nice. Are you talking about the one that has kind of the rav-shaped tongues, Music Nerd? I've actually been asking them to try that, so hopefully I can do a little demo of that sometime. So to answer you, Ager, neotone, I haven't played any, but I've liked what I've heard from them. So we're so lucky right now to have so many quality instruments. Even though I wouldn't perform with all of the tongue drums that are on the market, I still would own them. This is the debate that everybody has to kind of ponder in their head, what they want to use their instrument for. If I'm performing, I need to have an instrument that projects well. I need to have an instrument that's easy to use microphone. But if you're a personal player, you're playing in a particular space, you know, if the acoustics are good where you're playing, it doesn't really matter what you're playing. So I always joke about this, but I can make a $100 Chinese handpan sound okay. It's about controlling and knowing how to strike things. So, but I like neotone for sure. Oh, Amanda Stone, that's a classic. It's bad. It's bad. I'm embarrassed to say the number of ravs and handpans that I have, but it's a lot. And it's not because I'm wealthy. I'm very much not wealthy. It just I happen to land in this world of handpan makers liking my work and tongue drum makers liking my work. So yeah, it's an issue. I live on a really big farm. But I live in a very small apartment on a very big farm, so I don't have much storage. So I have an instrument rack inside that I have ravs and handpans on. Yeah, it's also different for me too. Aside from just wanting to have a lot of scales, I also keep a lot of the scales that companies will send me to review or to play, because I get students on them eventually. So to teach a student with ease, if I have that scale, it's way easier to work with them than not. So I try to keep scales that are especially common scales that people would have. Yeah, Cosmos Sky, they actually reached out to me, so you saying that reminds me that I need to talk to them again. But I like what they're doing. I think it's kind of neat that someone else is creating and changing the materials and stuff they're using. I would love to hear the difference between a stainless steel or a brass handpan. Maybe someday someone will do that. Nice, I like it. Yeah, I ended up building a storage unit for the ravs. So the ravs all store like this, and the handpan store next to each other. I actually need to fix the handpan get up so that it's a little bit better, but I have my performance and class instruments for working with students, but I also have instruments for big classes. So I have a lot of B Celtics that I have in storage as well, if I'm traveling and I want to offer a 10-person class or something. So yes, for sure. Honestly, I think if you could find a way to store them on a wall, you probably could. It's just the weight of them that concerns me. If you could store them on the wall like this, you really could have a lot of surface space. The Orbits, I think it's Orbis. There's an Orbis stand that's magnetic that goes on the wall. You screw it into the wall, but the stand itself is magnetic, and you can store them kind of at this angle or like this. That seems like a really good solution. So you could have maybe 5 of them in a row against a wall, but it means they're sticking out, this far on your wall. So may not be good for all space situations, but I'm gonna try to grab a handpan. It looks like it's gonna pour in a minute, but I'll try to grab a handpan to play for you guys. Any scale requests that you would like to hear a particular handpan scale, I'm happy to grab them for you. I know I always feel kind of gluttonous with all of these instruments, but I mean that's my my living, so I think it's okay. That's what I tell myself. Ooh, Arabian Night. Okay, all right, I can do that. That is a scale that I convince them to make, but I do not play very frequently, and I need to play it more. All right, you were the first one, so I will grab Arabian Nights for you. And hopefully it does not rain in the intro. So, this was the first one they ever made. We're going to be covered in humidity in a second because it was in the cold. They told me they created an instrument, and I said, oh, what did you make? And they're like, oh, it's a Middle Eastern scale. And they didn't like it. So I said, oh, just send it to me and I'll try it and send you a demo and see if you guys like it with someone else trying it. And I liked it. And it was one they hadn't produced any new instruments in a while. So I ended up convincing them to make it. Same thing happened with the Marmara. The Marmara was just tossed aside. They didn't like it, and I convinced them to make it. So this shares a similar story. I also have a scale called Oxalista, G Oxalista, that one of my students managed to get another one of them, but it doesn't exist. We have the only two in existence, but it's like a G major scale. But the tricky thing about this scale is the 7. I guess they are. That's funny. We both have good taste, I suppose, right? Thank you guys so much. Thank you. I appreciate that, Anchor. Yeah, it's a cool scale. It's just a tricky scale. But I have another student that has this scale, and it's fantastic. Thank you so much. I need to spend more time with it. It's one of those things that I feel like the 7, and you probably know this already from having it, you have to almost reserve the 7th note for a particular part of the song. Like if I was playing I'd pair it with a particular bottom note. Maybe the 2 would work well with it. But there's like, it's inserted in a particular place and then it works. But it is tricky for a lot of people to use. But I find that it's a fun one. I was really inspired when I first got it because I thought it was one of the more unique sounding RAV scales. There's not many that have this many half steps. Pretty much every other note is a half step. So, yes, it's true. It's true. I like harmonic minor bass scales, and yeah, in general, I'm okay with dissonance. But I think for beginner musicians, for people that aren't comfortable with music, it can be tricky to conceptualize it. But cool. You guys were fun. It was really nice to talk to everyone. If anybody has any last-minute questions, feel free to ask them. I'll stay on here for another couple minutes. I have a show not this weekend, but the weekend after that in Nashua, New Hampshire. And then I also have a show in upstate New York, the end of the month as well. How am I recording right now? So I'm just using my phone, my iPhone 13 mini, but I prefer to do lives on my GoPro, ironically. And GoPros have a really nice mid and bass audio, which is shocking to me. I think quarter tones would be amazing. I'm very much interested in Persian and Syrian music, also just Turkish music as well. And the oud and rabab and sitar are all instruments that I've been playing and very interested in for a while. So I love microtonal music. If you look back on some of the old Hong websites, I'll see if you message me or something on Instagram or somewhere, I'll try to find a link for you. But if you look back, the original Hongs were made in hundreds of different scales, and there were some quarter tone or microtonal scales that they made back in the day. So there's some, like Bayati is one of the Hong scales that they used. So they were experimenting a lot on the original instruments. The RAV, it could be tricky to do quarter tones, simply because of the potential crosstalk and dissonance with other notes, because there's so many harmonics. On the handpan, it's a little more simple because you only have the octave and fifth to deal with. But yeah. Yeah, there's a website that has, actually if you type in Bayati Hong, it might even come up. It's an older Hong video, but there's a website that has scale examples of all of the Hongs that they could find at that period in all of the original scales. So yeah, my pleasure, absolutely. Yeah, thank you guys for hanging out. You guys are awesome. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Orbis Hex is a new Stan. Orbis Hex, I'll check that out, Mr. Music Nerd. Or Mrs., I don't know. All right, guys. Thank you for everything you do and answering questions. Yeah, I'm glad you guys are all here. I prefer these sorts of things. I don't get to spend a ton of time with people talking like this about handpans and RAVs. So you guys are the best. Appreciate you, and stay tuned. I'm posting a lot more videos now to try to get my YouTube channel active again. So be on the lookout for new stuff and for a Temu handpan unboxing soon as well. Bye, guys. Love you, appreciate you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.